I want to start this video off by saying that both of these games are respectfully goated and you should absolutely try both. However, I'm here today to decide what's more worth your money. Risk of Rain 2 versus MegaBonk. The new kid on the block in MegaBonk, and probably one of the most iconic indie games of all time. First off, we have the big dog in Risk of Rain 2. Risk of Rain 2 is a game that most people watching this video have probably heard of, even if you are not in the indie game space. This is a third-person shooter where you collect items at a high rarity and you just proceed to continue through the game. And things tend to get very out of control. This is an online co-op game as well, if you would like it to be. However, I think it's equally as fun solo. And the game is insanely in-depth. Risk of Rain 2 has one of the best upgrade systems in any game I've ever played. And I think that's due in part to how they've handled how you unlock content. You do things that are actually worth an objective to unlock certain content. You're not just sitting there and doing pointless tasks to unlock it. It feels intentional. Every single character in Risk of Rain feels very unique, and they are very in-depth, and they have very unique build paths. But at the same time, there is not a single character that I think is objectively better than others with the sense of how they scale. Yes, there's characters that are innately weaker because that's just what the nature of the game is, but I don't think it's weaker in the sense of you don't have the tools in your toolbox. I think the game's difficulty progression is very challenging. It encourages you to move at a faster rate, yet however you need to balance that with getting enough items to actually kill the next enemy. And I think that makes it a really fun, interesting gameplay loop. Once again, like I said, this game is an online co-op experience to you and 3 friends, but it is just as fun solo. Co-op, however, I do think is one of the things that this game has that MegaBonk doesn't have. But I think that this game also has personal skill. You have to be able to hit your shots. You have to be able to aim. You have to know when to use your abilities. So overall, I think Risk of Rain is absolutely worth the price of admission. However, I could absolutely understand if that's not your cup of tea. And now we talk about MegaBonk. MegaBonk is the new kid on the block, and this game is being doubted as a Vampire Survivors meets Risk of Rain 2, and I don't know if you could get a more accurate description. Essentially, it has multiple mechanics from both games. I think it draws more from Vampire Survivors than it does Risk of Rain outside of the item system, but it automatically attacks. You do character progression the same way you do in Vampire Survivors / Risk of Rain, and you're essentially discovering levels and discovering these characters. And it has challenges, it has unique weapons, it has unique items, it has item limits that then you have to upgrade through in-game progression, which I think is really interesting. This game is single player only, and I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing, but it is something to consider if you're debating between both of these games, because it being single player only could limit a big capacity of people, because I know a lot of people like to play games with their friends. The gameplay loop of this game is very, very simple compared to Risk of Rain, and I'm not saying simple in the sense of a bad thing, but I'm saying Risk of Rain kind of takes a little bit of initial grasp of the game to be able to progress late in. I think MegaBonk is one of those games you could kind of hop into and click things and get away with it, at least outside of the major swarms that happen. I think swarms is one of the cool mechanics that this game does different than Risk of Rain. I think another thing that this game does extremely well is momentum. So as you build speed, as you slide down hills, as you do different movement options, you actually carry your momentum, and that becomes important. There's a character such as Calcium, which is the skating skeleton. He is based on your movement speed as the damage you deal. So it having the ability for me to slide down a hill and reach my maximum damage is insanely nice. This game is also made by an independent developer, if that is important to you. I think it's interesting to support an indie dev, and I think this is a insanely detailed and good game. I absolutely think that both are worth your money. However, if you want my opinion, this is going to come down to you. I think Risk of Rain has a much better long-term gameplay loop for the average person, considering it also has the ability of co-op. However, MegaBonk is one of those games that could easily change into being that. I just don't think there's enough substance there for the average person to grind for. Yes, you could go for kill records. Yes, you could go for leaderboards. But at a certain point, the game just kind of like falls away from you, and not being able to aim and control skills might be important to you. So, as of the current state of the game, which keep in mind, this video is coming out a week into MegaBonk being out, I think Risk of Rain 2 is still the better choice, but absolutely give MegaBonk a chance if you are a PC person looking for something new, if Risk of Rain just doesn't scratch your itch.